Frank Sinatra, the man whose voice defined an era, whose swagger set the standard for cool, and whose influence reached far beyond music, had everything: fame, power, and the loyalty of millions. But behind the charm and the effortless smile was a fiery temper and an unshakable sense of pride. At the height of his fame, Sinatra didn't just make friends. He made enemies, and some of them were among Hollywood's biggest names. What most people don't know is that there were certain people Frank Sinatra couldn't stand, and his reasons reveal a darker, more complicated side of the man behind the legend. For decades, Frank Sinatra reigned as one of the most powerful and influential figures in entertainment. From his early days as the heartthrob of the 1940s to his commanding presence in film and the iconic Rat Pack era, Sinatra embodied success, charm, and confidence. But for all his charisma, he was known for having a short fuse and a long memory. If you crossed him, insulted him, or even questioned his talent, you were done. Sinatra's grudges weren't fleeting. They were legendary, and some of the biggest stars in Hollywood learned that the hard way. One of Sinatra's most infamous feuds was with comedian Don Rickles. Known for his sharp-tongued humor, Rickles once made the mistake of poking fun at Sinatra in front of a live audience, calling him the chairman of the board. Most people would have been furious, and Sinatra was. But instead of public retaliation, he surprised everyone by laughing it off. Yet behind the scenes, insiders claimed Sinatra never truly forgave Rickles. He may have smiled on stage, but Sinatra's pride was not to be trifled with. To insult him even in jest was to risk your career. Then there was his tension with Marlon Brando, his co-star in Guys and Dolls. The two could not have been more different. Brando, the brooding method actor obsessed with depth and realism, and Sinatra, the perfectionist performer who thrived on instinct and control. Sinatra despised Brando's slow, introspective approach to acting, once calling him mumbles and refusing to speak to him between takes. Their on-set clashes became Hollywood legend, with Sinatra reportedly storming off set more than once. To Sinatra, Brando represented everything he loathed: pretension and ego disguised as art, but perhaps no relationship revealed. Sinatra's temperament more than his fallout with singer Bobby Darin. Darin, young and ambitious, idolized Sinatra and wanted to follow in his footsteps. But Sinatra saw him as a threat, a brash upstart encroaching on his territory. When Darin began performing standards Sinatra made famous, O.L. Blue Eyes took it personally. "Don't ever copy me," he reportedly warned. Their rivalry grew so tense that Darin was quietly blacklisted from several high-profile gigs. For Sinatra, there was room for only one king. Even his relationship with the press reflected his volatility. Journalists who criticized him found themselves banned from his shows or frozen out entirely. Once, after a particularly harsh column, Sinatra sent the reporter a coffin-shaped box with a note that read, "Hope you fit." To Sinatra, loyalty was sacred, and betrayal, even perceived betrayal, was unforgivable. Yet, beneath all the anger and grudges, there was a reason for Sinatra's intensity. He had fought his way up from poverty, humiliated and underestimated in his early career. Every insult, every slight, felt personal, a reminder of the days when he wasn't respected. His temper was born from pain, his pride from survival. In a world that tried to shape him, Sinatra refused to be molded. At his core, Frank Sinatra was both the hero and the villain of his own story. Brilliant, flawed, and fiercely human, he demanded loyalty, respect, and authenticity, and he gave nothing less in return. The people he couldn't stand weren't just rivals. They were reflections of what he feared most: losing control, losing relevance, losing himself, even today. Decades after his death, Sinatra's name evokes admiration and awe, but also caution, because if there's one thing his story proves, it's that greatness often comes with a price. Behind the voice that could melt hearts was a man who burned with pride, passion, and a refusal to ever be second best.